Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tippie podcast. I'm here with Thomas Vanderham, known as the Kid back in the day, back when we were both younger. Well, I don't know if I was ever young, but at one point I was kind of young. And yeah, good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. How are you, man?
My pleasure, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you betcha. All right, well, Thomas has been a mainstay in the freeride world since forever, since you were a kid. You basically came on, much like Jeff Gullovich, as a young man, and you're still going. You're still a pro rider, and you're still riding incredibly well, and you're still making content, and you're still in the game. What's it like being around for so long?
That's been a trip. Been crazy just because of the sport we're involved with has grown so much in the last 2 decades, you know, since I started. So it's just been fun to, you know, be a part of that, and all kinds of doors are opening and new opportunities are happening because the sport of mountain biking is in such a healthy place. So, you know, I think that that's what's made the last 2 decades fun and kept it interesting, and never been a dull moment.
Did you ever look forward in time and think that you'd be still doing this, 20 years later?
Certainly not. Not when I started. No. I never even really had aspirations to be a pro, like when I was a kid. Because it was so new. There were so few guys in front of me, like yourself and Wade and Richie. Like the concept of riding your bike for a living was still quite a new one. And
unless you're a racer.
Yeah, unless you're a racer. But yeah, making a living away from professional racing, it was a pretty new idea. And it was just, as a kid, I just rode my bike because I had fun doing it, and I never really thought much about it being a job. And then it just sort of happened. So to be here with you 20 years later, no, I never expected it.
Yeah. So how did it happen for you? Because I know you came from Edmonton originally, and then your parents moved to North Vancouver, which is perfect for a mountain biker. Like, they could have moved anywhere else that would not have been quite as perfect as this.
Yeah.
And then, you got discovered, riding well, and got asked to be in rank 3, was it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I just, moved into Deep Cove, which is...
From Edmonton,
right into Deep Cove. And, I rode a lot in Edmonton. I was pretty into the sport. I had, I had like a subscription to Bike Magazine that my parents had got me, and it was pretty serendipitous timing. But right before we moved, that article came out about the North Shore.
Yeah.
With Andrew Chandra on the cover, and I was flipping through the pages. Like, I can't believe that, this is where I'm going to live. I got here and I'd known about the Cove Bike Shop, so I just sort of started hanging around the bike shop, and Wade was working there, and got to know Gabe and Wade, and was just a Cove Grom. And I had my little pack of buddies from high school that I rode with every day.
Yeah.
And, there's just a lot of things based here in North Van. A lot of companies have their headquarters here, and there was a lot of films being made here at the time. So between working with Digger on some of the early North Shore Extreme films, and Crank 3, and then eventually Ride to the Hills was sort of the big breakthrough one, I'd say.
Yep.
There was just a lot happening here, and no shortage of things for a young kid to get involved with.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what was your first bike that you started riding the shore on? When you came here, what did you come here and show up from Edmonton? What were you on?
Yeah. Well, I had a neighbor in Edmonton, guy who introduced me to mountain biking, got me started. His name was Pete Zablotny.
Canadian BMX champion.
That's right. Yeah.
Multiple times.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Total legend. He was my neighbor.
He was a Norco guy.
Directly across the alley from me. And
how serendipitous is that too?
Yeah, super crazy. So funny story about that. I actually I met Pete by throwing a rock through his car window. Shortly after we moved into this new house, I was like, messing around the backyard, digging some hole, and the neighbors, kind of kitty according to us, had this huge metal garage door, and we would chuck rocks at it to make this big loud sound. And one time I threw a rock over the fence, and as he was driving by, and it flew in through his passenger window in his car.
No.
So
nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. But so basically, I was, I don't know, I think I was 9 at the time. So to sort of like, I didn't have any money, so to pay that off, he got me just to like help him out with some stuff around the house. He had a courier business, and I went into his house and saw these like 8-foot tall BMX trophies, and I was like, what's going on here? And he had won like all the biggest North American races there were, and rode for like Factory GT back in the day. So yeah, he was a total BMX legend that had found mountain biking again sort of somewhat recently, and was racing for Norco. So bottom line is I used to get his bikes or buy his old bikes from him. So I came to Vancouver with a Norco team issue hardtail, with an XC700 fork, the Mirzoki XC700.
That had the little holes drilled to the bottom?
Yeah. The holes up the lowers. And I quickly discovered that wasn't going to cut it on for riding here. So
you got the Z1s eventually.
I got I got myself a Cove Stiffy because I started to work at the bike shop. I got myself a Cove Stiffy, and I built it with a Z1 drop off, which at the time was like a 5-inch single crown fork. And everyone's like, you can't run it. You can't run that much travel on a hardtail.
Like, I thought they were only 4 inches back then.
Yeah, it was like the brand new one that was 5 inches. And wow, that's not for a hardtail. Like you can't run that much travel on a hardtail, but I did.
Oh yeah.
So that was my first like shore bike. From there, I actually bought a K2 from Chandro. That didn't last long. No. The K2 Beast or Animal or whatever.
Yeah.
Horrible bike. And then I bought my last like real bike, which was a giant ATX1 from a local racer here, and that took me to riding for Rocky. So. And
you started with like it was best not a pipeline, it would have been like our DH race with an RM6. It
would have been in the RM6 era.
Yeah. Yeah. How many of those back ends did you blow off
couple.
Before they got tightened up?
Yeah, a couple.
Everything broke back then.
It was until the bikes were just not
made
built for what we were doing on them.
No,
they kept breaking in the same place.
Bottom brackets and rims and even snapping bars and stuff.
I did. I broke handlebars. Quite sketchy, actually, thinking back to what we were riding on those bikes.
We didn't know any better.
Well, no. Exactly.
Have you got all your own real teeth?
No. I've got like half of my own real teeth.
Yeah. All mine are fake. There's that. Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so now you're sponsored by Rocky. You're traveling the world. You're this young Canadian kid, and you were younger than the rest of us, guys at the time.
Yeah.
I think I remember going to where was it? Riva de Garda with you.
Mm-hmm.
And Dirk Jantz had brought over you and I.
Yeah.
And I remember actually following you down this rocky trail. Everything in Garda is rocky. Yeah. But it was one of the easier ones there, our section. And I was following you, and I was all kind of happy with myself. I'm like, oh, I'm right on TV's butt. You're riding along. I'm keeping up here. And then all of a sudden I saw you preload and you bounced over this rock. So I thought, okay, there's something coming. So I bounced over the rock. And it wasn't into the air that I realized we were jumping over a rock about the size of a washing machine. That was about 5-6 feet out, and we were clearing the rock.
Okay.
And I was like, oh! And I was already committed, so it had already happened before I even had time to get scared. And then you landed and cornered right, and I landed and cornered right, and then I was like, then I just got all weak because I was like, oh my God, that was really, really close. I'm going to be careful following this kid, man.
That's funny.
But so now you're on the road, you're traveling the world and going and shooting and whatnot. What was that like as a young man getting paid and getting free plane tickets and.
Yeah, it was it was an eye-opening experience. Tons of life experience just sort of thrown at you, and it was really cool. I right out of high school, I started to go to the local college here, and I quickly discovered that I couldn't really commit to both, riding and being in school full time and like give them both my all. I had some sponsors, and they were asking for my time and asking me to be places, and so that was sort of the point where I had to decide, or I felt I had to decide to choose between the two at that time, and had some conversations with my sponsors about, if I'm going to do this full time, I need to, start making a bit of money doing it. So that was sort of the fork in the road, I guess. And yeah, I mean, it was crazy. It was a fun time to be part of the sport. Lots going on around the world, traveling to Europe, and
they say that was the golden age of freeride.
It could be.
It was also new,
Yeah, it was looking back at it now, it was crazy, like progression that was happening. Guys were really going for it hard on bikes that were not really up to the task.
Ready for that.
So
yeah.
it was like it was a pretty wild time to be involved with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So you've filmed for a few years. You traveled the world. You're kind of committed to the lifestyle, and as a job and whatnot. And then I think it was 2002 was your first Rampage.
Yeah, it would have been 01. The first one I think was in 01.
Or 01 was the first one. Yeah. So tell me about Rampage for the first time for you. You were what, 17 or something?
I was 17. So, well, yeah, it was quite an eye-opening experience.
Because have you ridden Utah
at the time?
at that point?
So I'd never been to Utah.
Yeah,
I had seen some footage. I think at the end of Crank 3,
Watson.
there was a sequence with Watson there, and I remember seeing that and it was just sort of mind-blowing. Like, it looked like something, this type of skiing you see from Alaska or something, like just crazy terrain. And then they announced that they were going to have this event down there. And I went down there with Watson. I rode for Sombrio at that time. And we traveled down together, and it was good being with someone who at least had a little bit of experience with the dirt. But that first year of the event was just like, it was just crazy. It was just us in the middle of the desert, like kind of like 20, 30 people, nobody really watching, some cameras around, not one shovel. Like, nobody was digging lines.
Oh no, you kicked the rocks out of the way.
You just kicked the rocks out of the way with your foot, and they're like, here's your terrain, like, go practice. And it was just crazy, like carnage. People falling all over the place.
Because people didn't pack in landings,
or not
clear
at
off
all.
takeoffs.
No, I mean, it wasn't even in our mindset. We were just like, not that we even asked, are we allowed to do that? It was just, this is the terrain, ride it.
Yeah. Raw as it gets.
Yeah, super raw. So I remember like just being totally overwhelmed by the terrain and the scene and everything about it down there. And I remember trying to sleep before the event, and I laid down in my bed and I looked up at the ceiling, and I don't think I blinked. Like, I don't think I got 1 minute of sleep. I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And somehow, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I qualified for finals and rode the event. And I think I ended up breaking my bike at one point, but anyway, it was just I went home just like totally mind blown that, about what had happened and the potential that there was for that area. And it was just a mind blowing experience.
Yeah. Well, the Canadians were really, put ourselves on the map in free riding, because we had already with the movies, but then we really validated it with, so many Canadians riding gnarly lines. They had the Canadian bacon line, which, typically only the Canadians are doing. And I was the rowdiest line there.
Mm-hmm. And on the qualifying side,
Yeah. And then Wade won the thing.
Yeah.
And it was cool for that. And
yeah.
a bunch of BC boys
Yeah.
rocking it in the desert, you know?
Yeah, totally.
But you went on to do how many rampages in the end?
Well,
four or five?
No, I think it was 2014 or 15 was my last year. I don't remember.
Oh, so
but I think I did 9. I think I did 9 of them.
9 of them?
I
Oh,
think
wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, my God. That's more than I thought.
Yeah, 9 or not 10, maybe 9.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
What was your best result?
My best result was 2008, where I finished 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got on the podium.
Yeah. Got on the podium.
And you watched the elevation of the riding and the building and the bikes and everything as you went along.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was cool to see that because it was, I remember quite distinctly the first building that happened, and that was pretty much 2004. So they ran it for 4 years at the first zone, and it was Glenn O'Brien and his group of Irish buddies. That year it rained really hard, and they just like went up the hill with shovels and packed in this landing, and it just looked so different than anything. It had all been wrought at that point, and that really set a light bulb off. And then Red Bull shut the event down for 4 years. It took a break, 2005, 6, 7, and it came back in 2008, and they decided to go wild with the features. So that was the first year with the big canyon gap and the Oakley Sender structure.
It was all built up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the year that I finished 3rd there. 2008 was the first year with all the big features. And since then, yeah, I mean, even since I've stopped riding the event, I've followed it pretty closely. I think it's nice to see them pull back from some of the built stuff, some of the man-made stuff.
Too much.
I think where it's at now is the best it's been.
The right amount.
The
of
right
building.
amount, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the riders are doing an amazing job transforming the hill with sandbags and things they do, but the lines still look natural and unique, and there isn't this like big wooden structures on the hill.
Yeah, totally not overdone.
I think it's good.
Now they seem to have like a lot of riders at one point where there was so many riders and people were fighting for space, fighting for a line, and there's a little bit of squabbling going on.
Yeah.
How was it when you picked your line when you got 3rd there? Was it and how did you pick your line?
Well, I remember that year was crazy because we came back from the 4-year break, and the way that they had it set out, they wanted to do the same as before, where there was a qualifying side and a final side. So leading up to the event, everybody was focused on the qualifying side because that's what you needed to do to get to the final. So the canyon gap was on the final side, not on the quali side. You couldn't ride it in qualis. And then there was a delay. There was like a wind day delay. So they bumped the qualifying day 1 day. So there was no day between qualifying and finals. So we qualified on like a Saturday morning, and I qualified in last position. I think they took 15 riders, and I qualified 15th. And qualifying ended sometime around like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Then they're like, okay, that's the area you're riding tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Go up there and find your line. Which was just like crazy.
Like,
so we had like 6 hours.
It's like cramming for an exam.
Yeah, to figure out our line. It was all kind of a blur. I don't remember it that well, but I just remember that I figured I wanted to hit the canyon gap, so I just sort of scratched away into it and scratched away out of it, and that was pretty much it at the time. And luckily, Cam McCall hit it first, and he came up like a foot short, and it was pretty.
He rode it out though.
He rode it out. Yeah, it was pretty easy to figure out the speed though, just from watching him hit it. So he did. I got to give him credit for doing some of the heavy lifting there.
Yeah.
But it was just a whirlwind the way that year worked. And
did you no-hander it eventually?
I did that year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, and I didn't complete that run because I crashed. That was my second run.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting the best trick award for that no-hander, but it wasn't like a run that ever scored.
Yeah. Yeah. The complete run.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, Yeah, it was just a crazy year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Then they came out with the machinery. Then they were putting in highways, and like you say, now they've pulled back from that. And then I think it's at the right balance now. So,
yeah.
Who are you excited to watch drop in on Rampage these days? You know, like who are you always like, oh, here we go, this is gonna be nuts.
Well, yeah, honestly, everyone to a certain degree.
Yeah,
like there's just this massive mutual respect for anybody that rides there.
Yeah.
Guys that I like to watch always, you know, Andreu, Brendan Reeder. Yeah. Those would be some of the guys that come to mind.
How do you pick any though, right?
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys always have some pretty serious moves planned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know how you feel about getting older and whatnot, but there's a thing inside everyone that's kind of like, I should be there. I should be throwing down right now. How much of you is like, I should be doing some big TV whips and ride some steeds and I'd show those boys, you know, like, how much of you is like wanting to be there? What percentage of you? And what percentage of you is like, no, I'm cool, just free ride on the shore?
I would say the first year that I missed it was the hardest.
Yeah.
That was the one where, yeah, I felt like I maybe could have been there still. But I think with the way the event was going, it was basically to place on the podium. You had to have some big tricks, which I just was never. It was never something that was up my alley. I never had the big deep bag of tricks that I think you need.
You're not going to start flipping off cliffs and whatnot, eh?
And no, that just wasn't ever part of my skill set. So there's a part of me that likes, like, you know, the idea of riding that terrain again. But in terms of competing there, I think you need to be in a certain mindset. Like when I competed there, I was in a mindset that I could. Ultimate goal was to podium.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that there was a chance I could do that. But now I know, like, I'm very comfortable with the fact that I couldn't. so there's no.
But yeah, there's
no issues.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy watching it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you up until recently, you've still been getting podiums, you know, in like the whip off and whatnot, you know, with all the top dogs. So
yeah.
You know, but like a whip is like a method to snowboarding. It's a timeless move,
right?
And you're not flipping off a cliff, and you know you're going to be okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that's well within my comfort zone. So yeah, it's fine. But in terms of the Rampage, no, I do remember the mental space you had to be in to ride that event, and I'm more than happy to cheer everyone else on now.
Yeah, totally. So you've wrapped up your Rampage chapter of your life, and then you went back to film and hardcore. And shooting, you know, as you always have. Mm-hmm. And you came up with some classic movies. It was one of the collective movies where you did like was it the dirt scene, like falling from the sky?
Oh, in Unreal.
In Unreal, like some big productions like that, and others. But you know, right back into filming and making creative stuff and doing fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you always get the classic shots with like Sterl, you know, and whatnot, and who have you shot with for 20 years now. Mm-hmm. So making videos, shooting with Sterl, who's had more bike covers, I think, than anyone ever.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Tell me about your history shooting with Sterl, like shooting as a young man and then shooting, you know, throughout your career, and now you guys must meld together, or is it you're still always learning with each other, or is it just like a well-oiled machine now when you guys go and get the nugs?
I think we're always looking to do something a little different. I think when we work together now, we're trying not to overlap too much of what we've done, I'd say. It definitely goes back a long way. Sterl was one of the first guys I worked with, one of the first photographers I ever worked with. His first bike cover was right around the time that I was kind of coming onto the scene, starting to ride for Rocky. So I would have been like 16, and that was when he got his first cover Eric Van Drumlin Reaper log
Yeah.
shot. So, you know, he's gone on to have a lot of great, you know, success as a photographer, and it's been good to work with him. We've been went to Morocco together for Rome, you know, some crazy corners of the world. And, you know, more recently, like working on some of his like aerial flash concepts and stuff, which is, I think when we work together now, a lot of it is trying to get creative and do things a little bit differently. And, it's been
break
good.
some new ground.
Well, just try to do something creative.
After 20 years, you've done a lot, you know.
Yeah,
You have to try and do something new and creative.
Yeah.
It gets the juices going.
For sure.
I have a funny story to show you with Sterl where there was a crank that were made colored and they made raw ones. And so they asked me to do a nude photo shoot in the raw to advertise the raw crank.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, we're not going to show anything. So they wanted to recreate the Bigfoot shot, like, you know, where he's running, like the fuzzy photo of Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And so I went out in the bush with Sterl and we walked hundreds of feet into the bush, and I got naked. I had like a hat, or I think it was an afro, over you know, my privates.
No way.
And I was going to be running with my leg hiding my junk, and we got out there and we were ready to do this nude photo shoot, like the Bigfoot. And he goes, I forgot something. I gotta go back to the car. I'll be right back. And I'm like, what? You need your wide angle? He's like, no. I need a filter or something. And I'm like, okay. Because I'll be right back. I'm like, okay. So he runs hundreds of feet back to the truck. I'm deep in the woods, naked, you know, with an afro, covering myself. Like, okay, this is strange. Oh boy. And then all of a sudden, I heard voices from behind me, deep in the woods. And I'm like, are those voices? I hear voices. Oh my God, and there was a couple walking along some trail that I didn't even know about, walking their dog. I'm standing there, I'm looking for a tree to run to, but I can't even get to a tree. There's nothing but like 2 feet of ferns around. So I lie down in the ferns naked. Oh, they walk by talking about, you know, random things. I can hear them, and their dog is like, and the dog comes over to me, and I'm like, get out of here. And they're like, Spot, come, Spot. So Spot takes off. And then all of a sudden, Sterl shows back up again. And I'm like, dude, let's get this shot done with before I get arrested. And I told him what happened. We started laughing. So we got the shot, me running like Bigfoot. And then they made a 2-page spread out of it in Bike Magazine. And got it done. But that's the strangest photo shoot I've ever had.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. It's so funny. Okay, so talk to me about racing. Because I remember one of the more interesting course walks I've ever done was with you and your brother Ryan. Okay. When Stevie Smith gave you a course walk, gave you the lowdown on the course walk at the 2010 World Championships of downhill.
Yeah.
At Mont-Saint-Anne. And I tagged along with you guys and filmed it, and it blew my mind what lines he was showing us, you know. Yeah. And then he went on to get a silver that year.
That's right.
Behind Sam Hill. Mm-hmm. Almost won the thing. Mm-hmm. But you know, you're a free rider, but you qualified for the World Championships representing Canada, and you and your brother, you guys must have like got points from BC Cup and Canada Cup, or how did you even get there?
It's a very good question. Yeah. Well, going back a little further, I grew up racing. That is sort of my background. And I would attribute those years a lot to just like my fundamental bike skills. Was racing as a junior. I raced locally BC Cups, driving around with Johnny Rockall and stuff to different BC Cups, which was fun. And then a little bit nationally, I qualified for the Worlds as a junior in 2002 in Kaprun, Austria.
Oh, wow.
So that was a super cool experience. My first time, actually it was my second time to Europe, but that was a really cool experience. Dustin Adams was on the team that year, and we did a lot of practice together.
Dustin was fast.
Super fast, yeah. And he had a breakout year that year where I think he got 4th at either... Washington. Yeah. Forget where it was.
That was the first World Cup that Steve Feet won. And Dustin Adams got 4th.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that was all that same year. Super cool. And I had no idea about the competition, really, like international competition. I'd heard there was lots of fast guys out there.
Of course, yeah.
I ended up just getting smoked in the race, and a guy named Sam Hill won that year. G. Atherton second. Looking back at the start list now, it's like the who's who of racing for the last 10 years, and the amount of World Cup victories that came out of the top 10 that year is insane.
Yeah,
it's world champs, World Cup victories. So
legends.
I don't feel so bad about getting like 20th or whatever. But,
yeah.
Anyway, at a certain point, it would have been after my first year racing pro. I'd stopped racing. I just was. It's not what I was sponsored for. I was sponsored, to be in the movies and dedicate my time to that. So I stopped racing completely. And then 2010, my brother, who's 6 years younger than me, he was getting into racing pretty heavily. So he was traveling around and having fun doing it. And one year, it was right after Crankworks. He's like, I'm going out to Panorama to race the Nationals, and do you want to come? And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. I'll come with you. So we drove out to Panorama together. We practiced together, and there was a seating run, and he had crashed in his seating run. So he was almost like the first one down the hill. I remember it was crazy. I was on my way up the lift for my run, and I saw his run from the lift. And there was this big rock garden in the middle of the Panorama Racecourse. And he had the most epic save like I've ever seen. He hit this rock, and his feet blew off, and he was flying off the back of his bike, and he saved it and kept rolling. And I was just like cheering from the chairlift. And as it turns out, he came down, got in the hot seat, and he sat in the hot seat until I came down.
No way.
He was still on the hot seat. I came down, and I beat him by like 0.2 of a second.
Oh my. No way.
Yeah, and we ended up, based on that one single race, we both qualified for Worlds for the national team. Yeah, because I forget we finished maybe second or third or fourth or something in the race. So all of a sudden they're like, yeah, come to St. Anne. So before St. Anne there was a race in Wyndham, so we decided to do both, and we went to Wyndham, and that was cool. That was my kind of racetrack because it was like 2 minutes long, and I could hold on the whole time.
Yeah.
It's something I learned about myself that between racing those two World Cups was like I can ride at 100% for about a minute.
Yeah.
And
then your hands lock up.
And
your forearms.
And like in talking to Stevie and stuff, I'm like, at the bottom of St. Anne, it's a 4.5 minute track that year.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you feel at the bottom of the race? He's like, I'm 100%. Like, I'm still charging 100%. I'm like, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's completely insane that you can attack a race course for 4 minutes and
be able to hang out of the bars.
And like, I can attack it for one.
Yeah.
But just goes to show you like how hard those guys train and what kind of athletes they are.
Well, there's great free riders like Remy Mataille. He tried World Cup racing, and he was getting forearm pump like way earlier than he thought, and he couldn't utilize the skills that he had to rip because he couldn't hang on to the bike.
For sure, you gotta.
There's a lot of good riders that can't race at a World Cup level because of that same thing. Even though they might be able to rip for 30 seconds or a minute, but
yeah. Well, riding fast and racing are two completely different things. But anyway, yeah, that was something I learned through that experience. But it was incredible. I mean, we raced Wyndham. I didn't really go in with any expectations, but I ended up finishing, I think, better than I would have expected. My only goal was to qualify, so top 80 at that time.
Yeah.
I think it's now top 60, but so I qualified there and then went into Worlds, and my brother and I were number 99 and 100 on our race plates. So we dropped in. I was 99. I dropped in, a minute before him. So we were on the track together at the same time. Just a super cool experience overall, and it was fun to like dip my toe back into racing for that month or so or whatever, 2 months.
Yeah.
Total random sequence of events. But just
and you finished in the top 60.
I did. I finished 33rd or something, which
pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I was a ways off the pace, but I was stoked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your bro?
My brother crashed at the Worlds.
Yeah.
He crashed behind me. He was up at the split though. So
on you?
He probably had me.
Yeah. Didn't have the big saving N.Van around.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing to see you guys get the course walk there with Stevie Smith, and it just blew my mind. I remember going, yeah, you know, if you come into this section, you can just like bump that rock by Tippie's foot and then land down by Ryan. And then I'm looking at the distance over those sharp, chunky rocks, and he was hopping down sections of that. Like, it blew my mind. And I remember looking at your eyes, and you're kind of like, really, dude? And then I watched his race one, and that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
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 It was crazy.
Yeah. No, and yeah, on another level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So nice to hear about that, because I was always curious about that and how you got there and whatnot.
Yeah, how the hell did you end up here?
And you made it way through without getting hurt, you know, riding at 100%.
Yeah.
In general, have you had many injuries in your career? Like, I think you've done an elbow before.
Yeah,
you've done some other ones, but what injuries have you done in this career?
I would. I always like to just answer that by saying I've had my fair share. You know, I think if you do what we do for 20 years, you're definitely, you're going to get hurt. I happen to sort of have my injuries all as part of like one or two bigger crashes. But yeah, I broke my leg, broke my arm. I've separated my shoulder, both of my shoulders quite a few times.
Surgeries?
Not on my shoulders, no, but the other, the bones, orthopedics were surgeries.
Yeah.
A couple other non-bike injuries, but yeah, I think I've had my fair share, like not too many and not too few.
Yeah. Just right, just enough.
Just right.
Just to be legit.
Sort of what you'd expect.
What were your non-bike injuries?
I tore my ACL playing soccer.
Okay. Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What other sports do you do? I know you ski. You love to ski too.
Yeah. So I like to ski tour a lot. I skied my whole life, but I grew up skiing in Edmonton, where skiing's a little different. And since in the last 7 or 8 years, I've discovered ski touring, and I've gotten pretty into that. And it's still something new to me. Like, I don't actually have that much experience skiing PAL, but I love it, and I love the exercise involved. So I do that a fair bit with my brother. So I ski. I play on a men's league, like a beer league soccer team in the winter.
You're a forward or center fielder?
I don't have the wheels for that anymore.
No,
I'm a midfielder now.
Yeah.
I used to be growing up. I was always playing striker, but
and
leave that to the young fast kids.
Yeah.
But that's something I enjoy a lot, and it's really good cardio for the winter. And I like playing golf. And then some of the sports I did a lot as a kid. I played a ton of basketball in high school, but it's just hard now there's not really an easy league to do that like easily. And
there's no beer basketball leagues.
I don't have any time anymore now that I have 2 kids. So
there's
no, I'll just, leave it at, soccer, skiing, golf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And parenting.
Yeah.
You get a lot of exercise from that.
In a way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I saw an interesting documentary where Joe Namath, the quarterback, football legend, was asked to run around these 4-year-olds and do whatever they did. If they jumped up and down, he did jump up and down. If they rolled, you have to roll.
Oh, yeah.
And he was fatigued after 2 hours. He's like, this is gnarlier than a practice.
Yeah.
And it was the funniest thing,
That's funny.
Talk to me about having family now. You've got 2 little ones. You've got a boy and a girl.
Yeah.
You won the lottery. And, and you live in Deep Cove with your little family. And what's it like, first of all, balancing riding with being a parent and taking risks as a caretaker for someone, a few people. And in general, what's it like being a father of a family?
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's the best thing in the world, and it's a challenge a lot of the time. The balancing thing is tough. You know, you gotta obviously your priorities are them, and you got to make a lot of sacrifices at times to things that you want to do or might want to do for yourself. They're always coming first, but I don't know. Raising kids here, I was lucky enough to move here as a 14-year-old. Raising my kids here now is just incredible because there's so much around that I want to expose them to, and whether it's skiing a lot with my daughter up Mount Seymour over the winter, and just introducing her to the sports that I enjoy, that hopefully we can enjoy together for many years to come. It's just it's an incredible place to raise kids.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Do you find that, when you're riding something, like Wade says that, he goes, there's not that much that scares me on the shore then anymore. Like, I've done everything. I dirt biking, I'm scared.
Yeah.
And I take risks, and sometimes I go to climb things, and then I'm like, oh, I got kids, maybe I shouldn't. Oh, I'm going for it. And I'm sure you've got the shore so dialed with all the gnarly moves and whatnot, but still, when it's wet and greasy and slippery, it's real, right? And there's sharp rocks and sticks and whatnot out there, and when you're like on the edge of some of those moments, do you think, you know what? I don't need to go this fast. I'm just going to drag my rear brake a little bit here. I got kids and stuff. I'm good with this. Like how much does that affect your risk taking, decision making?
Mm-hmm. I would say for me, most of that happens away from the bike. So that would be like, I have kids now. I'm not going to be doing something like the Red Bull Rampage anymore. That exceeds the level of risk that I'm willing to take. But I try to make those decisions before I get on my bike, and then whenever I am on my bike, I'm committed to what I've decided to do.
You've got a game plan.
Yeah, like I'm just, I don't think you can let that creep into your mind when you're on your bike, because that's when accidents can happen. If there's a little bit of doubt in your mind as to what you're doing, I think that's kind of where you can make mistakes or get into trouble. So I try to make those decisions off the bike, and once I'm on my bike, I'm committed to what I'm doing. I know there's still risks, involved, as there are in lots of different areas of life as well, but just try to be as calculated as possible, I guess.
What trails these days out there in the shore give you the pucker factor? Or what are the gnarliest trails for you to ride where you're like, okay, like, are you ready for this today, Thomas? It's wet, it's greasy.
Yeah,
I don't know if I should do this trail. Name me 3 trails that kind of make you go, okay, let's bring my A game here.
Yeah. It all comes down to the conditions, I think. Like if it's wet and greasy on the shores, then a lot of trails become infinitely more difficult. So there's certain moves that if it's wet and greasy, like the move on Dales, the big sort of turn roll in shelf thing on Dales, that that you're thinking about that, as you head up the mountain and all the way down to it. I
think about the whole trail.
Oh, that's coming. No, that's coming. So that'd be one.
Yeah.
On Cypress, like, these are old trails, but Wild Cherry Roach Hit, some of those, we filmed there with Wade one day in the super greasy, just to like try to showcase that a little bit, and it's super sketchy. Like, it's so slippery.
I saw you were following them down something, and then you dabbed on one thing or and came close to like the edge. Yeah. And then let it go, and you made it. But I was like, oh god, no, you made it.
Slick, yeah. That was on that was on Fifth Horseman, so that'd be another one. All those trails have sections where in the wet you got to be on your game. Yeah, and just let it go and do what you have to do. Yeah. Tell me about filming with Sam Hill when he came here and you filmed in the wet in a raging storm, and he was like, "If we weren't filming right now, I definitely would not even be riding." And I think that was Follow Me, I believe. Yeah, another super cool experience. I mean, Sam, I didn't know him very well heading into that shoot, but that was cool. Just we only got him for I think 4 or 5 days maybe total, so it was quick, and it just decided to pour rain on us the whole time. So it was pretty miserable conditions, but we pushed through it and had some fun, and yeah, it was really cool seeing him up close and watching him ride. It was super impressive.
I thought that was a great idea for a movie. Just,
Yeah,
it's like a lot of time you're like, hey, follow me, which is a real legit thing, right?
Right.
And then the mix of different riders from different places and different backgrounds and whatnot.
For sure.
It's a great concept.
Yeah. No, it was cool. That was cool to ride with Sam. I was blown away by how just how balanced he was, and like he's low to the ground and just never gets kicked off line, even on the shore here where it's so easy.
Yeah.
For that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, I know in your sponsorship, you're paid not just to be a rider and get exposure, but you do a lot of tech work and R&D with a lot of your sponsors and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that side of the job, and tell me about something that over the years that you thought was cool that you don't see around anymore, and what actually was horrible and you're glad it's gone. Because it's a big part of the job.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's something that I've always been interested in from a super young age. Just I always worked on my own bikes and was tinkering with different things. And I grew up at a time when in Edmonton, there's quite a large community of bike commuters, and my dad was a hardcore commuter, and they used to have these bike shops that were not like the fancy bike shops where you buy new bikes. These bike shops were just walls of old parts, like old bolts, old bits and parts of this and that, and like there'd be a box of bearings, and I would go to these shops with my dad, and I was always just sort of taught to like keep what you have going. Like my first bike, actually my first mountain bike, the pedal spindle was seized into the crank, like completely, and it was not coming out. At one point we had it in the shop, in the rack.
So the pedal was stuck, or the pedal would not turn?
The pedal was seized to the crank. At one point they had like a 10-foot, like a pedal wrench with a 10-foot extension trying to pull this thing off.
The biggest snipe ever.
And it wasn't coming. So basically I was having to constantly rebuild the bearings of my own pedal and find new cages that would like fit on the spindle because it would wear off. But I had to work with the spindle. That was it. I couldn't, and I wasn't going to buy new cranks. So we'd always go to these shops with like just walls of old bolts and stuff to sort of like piece our bikes back together. And I think partly due to that, I just have always enjoyed tinkering with different setups and experimenting with, all kinds of different things. So when it came to like, riding as becoming a professional, something I learned over the years was just to scrutinize the bikes that I was riding, and always looking for ways to improve them and make them better. So one of my favorites early on was a custom flatline that Rocky welded for me. I kept sort of harking on them about geometry this, and I'd love to try something with a different head angle and different this, different that. So they finally agreed to weld me up a couple of these bikes. And
Al the welder?
Al the welder, yeah. And that was a bit of a starting point, and I really liked that bike. Was awesome because
what did you do? Like, did you go super slack with it on
I went very slack for the time. I think at the time the bike came with like a 67-degree head angle or something, and I asked for one with like a 63-degree head angle. So it was
ahead of your time,
considered radical at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be one of the ones that stood out in my mind. That was, kind of an all-time favorite bike for me.
Yeah.
From back in the day. And yeah, there've been lots of things that I guess I don't know. I have a bit of a like specialized use for some of these things. So, you know, like something like Plus tires, for example, they just don't work for me.
You roll them off when you turn.
I've talked to lots of people that do like them, and so I'm not gonna like rag on them completely, but for me, they just that's just something that just I tried and was like, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like a 2.5, like a double D.
Yeah, I run a 2.5 tire all the time. Yeah. The Plus, I just could never figure out the right pressure to run, because they're supposed to take advantage of the technology. You're supposed to run them pretty low pressure.
A little bit less, yeah.
Yeah, but then to keep the weight down of the tire, they keep the sidewalls really thin. So overall, you kind of get this bulbous, bouncy tire that just never agreed with my riding style.
Yeah, would you roll it off the
rim
when you
yeah, I double flatted the first ride I went on with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it's not to say, like I said, I have talked to lots of people that really like them. So
usually lighter people that aren't going.
Yeah. But people say,
speeds.
they make riding easier, and they've opened, you know, new possibilities for me to ride. So I think that's awesome. But
yeah,
just didn't work for me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Now you've done some crazy things on your bike, and you know, but you're known as being, you know, a responsible, professional. You know, your image, you're you know, you got a good clean cut image.
Okay.
What crazy shit have you done? Like, have you ever been in jail? Have you ever like gotten in a fight and beat up a bully, or have you like what's that? Tell us something that would surprise the people out there, or is what you see is what you get.
Pretty much what you see is what you get, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've never been in jail?
No, I haven't.
Have you ever even been in the drunk tank?
No.
Have you really?
No.
No.
No, I haven't.
You know. How many beers does it take to get drunk?
Depends. Sometimes one.
Yeah. I've seen it. I remember when you were a young man and we were at the Amsterdam and Whistler, and there was a table full of beautiful girls, and you know, us and the guys were like, "Wow, look at those beautiful girls!" And I was like, "Oh, go say hi." And you're like, "Oh, what really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And you're like, "I now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just go say hi." And say what? And I'm like, "I don't know. Just talk about, I don't know. Come here." And I grabbed you by the shoulder, and I pulled out. You had this fancy watch, a nice fancy Oakley watch. Or something.
Oh yeah.
And I walked up to the girls, and I'm like, "Girls, this is me and my friend Thomas, and he wants to know if you want to know what time it is." And I pull out your fancy watch, and then all of a sudden we were like partying with the girls, and then all our gang of guys was all hanging with this table of beautiful girls, and we're sitting there, and you're like, "That was easy," and I'm like, "I know." I forget how old you were, but I think you were actually old enough to be in the bar. So
that's good.
That was something crazy. You were underage in a bar.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
definitely one. Oh wow! All right. Well, before we go here, I asked you to bring a joke. You got a joke for us?
Man, I hate to disappoint you, but I don't. I'm not a big joke guy. I've been racking my brain though. I do have a funny story. Would that
that'll do?
Would that work?
Humor of all types is welcomed and appreciated.
Okay. So I don't think I've told you this one, but it was my first time out at Rocky to pick up my first Rocky bike. You know, so I was this 16-year-old kid, and I was like sponsored for the first time, and like so excited. So excited. So I head out to the office and pulled me into the back, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, so you know, here's your new bike," and they point to the corner, and there's this RM6 frame sitting there, and the thing looks like it has been hit by a truck. Like it is scratched and dirty and dented. And they're like, "Yeah, Tippie only used it for one photo shoot, so I think it should serve you well."
Are you serious?
I'm like, "Oh, this is 100% true." And I'm like so disappointed inside, but I'm trying to like
be happy,
you know, be humble and happy, and be like, "Yeah, you know, thanks, really appreciate it." I was expecting that pull out this fresh frame out of a box and
Glossy.
I got a Tippie hand me down.
Oh my god, that's hilarious! It's only been used one photo shoot. Are you serious?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh my god,
absolutely
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a yellow and black RM6. I don't know if you remember it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I hucked that thing.
Yeah.
Oh wow! It had like the monsters on it, and
at that point it was just the frame, I think. But
okay.
maybe it did have monster tees on it.
Yeah,
I forget. I kind of forget the details.
Oh wow, that's hilarious!
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome and sorry all at the same time.
For sure.
Oh, funny, man. Well, there you go. Well, that's a nice little chat. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us and open up your brain to the people and to myself. And my face actually hurts. That was some good humor.
No problem.
Right on. Well, good to see you, Thomas.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having a word for us. Say goodbye, everybody. And this has been Thomas Vanderham on the Red Tippie podcast. Later, bro.
Later.